But here's my breaking point on that. Come after me, call me names, I don't care. Call me what you want, go down that rabbit hole, whatever. But when you go after my family, my Turning Point USA family, my Charlie Kirk Show family, when you go after the people that I love, and you're making hundreds and thousands of dollars every single episode going after the people that I love because somehow they're in on this, no.
You know, I have to say it. I've never seen you like this.
No, this is righteous anger because this is not okay. It's not healthy. This is a mind virus. Yes, I believe in our judicial system. I do. We have a hell of a team working on this. Excuse my French. But this is not okay.
So you want to put these people back in the box where they've been creeping from?
I don't care what box you're in. But just know that your words are very powerful and we are human. My team are not machines and they're not robots. They are human.
So that right there was Erika Kirk, the wife of the late Charlie Kirk, who obviously was killed on September 10th of this year in an assassination, on Fox News, saying that she wants all the craziness that you see on podcasts and all the conspiracy theories to stop. She wants people to cut it out, and she wants them to stop targeting members of Charlie Kirk's former inner circle, the top upper echelon at Turning Point USA, and implying that they somehow betrayed him or they were somehow involved in his assassination, because she believes that this is incredibly destructive to those people who she knows personally. In fact, she refers to them as her TPUSA family. Now, of course, a lot of people, as soon as they saw this, immediately thought of Candace Owens. However, she was not technically named in that Fox News clip, although obviously the implication was that it was about Candace, as her podcast has risen to insane popularity post her deciding to investigate the Charlie Kirk assassination. And in addition to that, Candace Owens had previously said on her show that the only person that could stop her from conducting her investigation into the assassination of Charlie Kirk was Erika Kirk.
No one, and I mean absolutely no one, outside of my husband and Erika Kirk has the power to shut me up right now. That's it.
Upon request, upon her saying stop. So of course, Candace Owens immediately responded to this by saying, okay, I'm done with this. I respect the wishes of Charlie Kirk's wife. We're going to set this aside, leave it alone as of right now, and let the investigation and the trial play out with the proper authorities. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, Candace Owens didn't say that. She immediately started attacking Erika Kirk, implying that she was too incompetent to lead TPUSA because she was a woman.
And that the thing that is especially absurd about that is trying to almost like, I want to be clear that Turning Point USA is my family. The Charlie Kirk Show is my family. You know, like she's just expanding the wings of people that we're not allowed to critique because they're in the family. If you call them fam, you can't critique them, right? Oh, I'm sorry. We actually are showing a clip of Rob McCoy defending a pedophile or trying to launder the reputation of, that's fam. That's the CK show fam. Oh, I'm sorry. We are actually pointing to the fact that we know for certain that this person in your organization is a sexual deviant. That's fam. That is my, don't you get me upset. I know that this is a now $150 million in the last 3-month organization, and we employ tons of people, but you can't critique. You can't critique the fam. And I hate to say this, but I'm going to be very clear here. This is why there are many people who do not believe that women are equipped to lead companies, because what you are watching here is an unbelievably emotional response that is absent of any logic, okay? If you really care about your team, answer the questions, okay? Just demystify the entire event. Answer, come out, sit down, answer the questions so people don't think Turning Point USA looks so suspicious. Don't try to mom the organization and say, well, mother's upset because people are coming after her kids and all of this multi-million-dollar subsidiaries. That's my children, okay? The multi-million-dollar subsidiaries, Turning Point, like Turning Point Action, all that, those are my kids, so you can't critique them. Not a good idea.
And of course, there's an implication that Erika doesn't care enough about what happened to her husband, and maybe, quite possibly, even though it wasn't directly stated, she might be in on it. Because if you guys don't know, if you guys are unaware, Turning Point USA has benefited in terms of donations post the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And this is what we're going to talk about today. This is what we're going to discuss. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money Give me the money. Okay.
So I want to be clear about two things before I delve into this specific topic. And the first one is that I don't know any of these people personally. I see a lot of people making commentary about this that are talking about Charlie's relationship with Candace Owens being strained or not strained or stronger than ever or whatever. But in reality, I only met Charlie and Candace once. I met them both at the same place at the same time. They seemed close back then. But the thing is, that was like 2018. So I have no inside information on their relationship. I don't want to speculate on their relationship. My assessment from looking in as an outsider is that yes, Candace Owens did care about Charlie Kirk, but that does not necessarily mean that she isn't exploiting his death for her own personal gain. I mean, again, you look at her channel and every single one of her videos covering and investigating the assassination is over 1 million views, sometimes approaching 2 million views, and Candace Owens has actually become, for a period of time, the #1 podcast in the United States of America. Now, on the flip side, what Candace Owens would point to is all the donations that Turning Point USA received after Charlie Kirk's death. And while a lot of people are trying to make hay of this and retroactively attach motive to members of Turning Point USA, in reality, it makes perfect sense that post an assassination of an organization's founder, based presumably on that person's ideas, that the organization that represented his ideas and is considered to be his life's work would actually get support from people. So in reality, I'm not going to spend too much time on the money that is being made on this, because you can make arguments and undercut arguments for both sides of this particular equation, although I will point out that the money going to Turning Point USA is going to a nonprofit, and yes, people are paid from that nonprofit, but Candace Owens is quite literally profiting off of this because the money is going to her operation, her company.
So since Charlie has died, that organization has taken in $140 million. But gosh darn you people that are making hundreds of dollars every day on YouTube talking about Charlie Kirk's assassination and the BS narrative that is being fed and the very obvious psychological operation that is being employed to make you accept the BS that they are trying to sell to us.
And the second thing that I want to make clear is that I am not against questioning the government, investigating the government, second-guessing the government, or anything of the sort. But what I am against is people drawing conclusions and pretending that they're just asking questions, because that is a coward's tactic. It is quite weaselly, and in reality, many of the questions around Charlie Kirk's assassination have answers to them, but the thing is, nobody's actually looking for those answers because you can get more attention just repeating the questions. And a perfect example of this is a part of the conspiracy theory that I have been looking into for the past 3 days, trying to run down its origin point, which of course is this idea that the official story says that Tyler Robinson, post-shooting Charlie Kirk, disassembled the rifle, jumped down from the roof, reassembled the rifle, and then threw it in the woods. And this has led a lot of people to say that the FBI can't be trusted. They're clearly and obviously lying.
On this episode of You Might Be a Dumb Motherfucker, this is my rifle. It takes 2 different tools to take it apart. It takes a Torx key and an Allen key. Now, if I take a shot and immediately disassemble this, I have to remove the bolt, remove the magazine, grab my Allen key, hit the 2 bolts on the bottom, put those away in the Allen key, grab my Torx key, remove the scope, put everything in the backpack, make sure I have everything, and make my way downtown. Okay, which is going to take a lot longer for him than it is for me, especially because his fine-tuned motor function, something as simple as grabbing an Allen key to a little bolt, is going to be extremely impaired due to a dump of adrenaline throughout his bloodstream. An extreme elevated heart rate is going to make these fine-tuned skills extremely difficult. I mean, just for him to think and analyze of what needs to be done to disassemble this rifle and get away would be difficult. And we're not even going to touch the topic of him assembling the rifle on top of the roof, which if you reassemble a rifle and you take a cold dead shot, it's not going to be 100% accurate. Okay, or the fact that he disassembled this after taking a shot, which the rifle's going to be hot and they found no gloves. There's just so many inconsistencies. It just makes zero sense. I mean, I'm still working on this and I have taken this rifle apart 1,000 times.
But the thing is about that specific claim is that the reason it sounds so ridiculous that would be in the official story is that it's not actually in the official story. In fact, if you go to the charging document of Tyler Robinson and you make it to the last paragraph on page 5, what you'll find out is that the feds and the Utah state government are not making the case that Robinson disassembled the firearm after shooting Charlie Kirk. In fact, they are explicitly saying the opposite. Let me read from the report itself. The discovery led to an intensive review of UVU surveillance recordings to attempt to track and identify a suspect. The surveillance revealed the following. At approximately 11:51 a.m., the suspect entered the campus from the north. He is seen wearing a black shirt with an American flag in its center, a dark baseball cap, large sunglasses. Throughout the surveillance, the suspect keeps his head down and rarely raises his head enough to get a clear image of his face. As he proceeds across the campus, he is seen walking with an unusual gait. The suspect walks with very little bending of his right leg, consistent with the rifle being hidden in his pants. The unusual gait continues until the suspect is seen railing off the open walkway and onto the roof, where he leaves the camera's view. Now, surveillance video from a neighborhood ring camera was actually released where somebody who is reportedly Tyler Robinson was walking through that neighborhood with this unusual gait, which of course implied that the firearm was in and around his pants, basically preventing him from bending his knee because it was fully assembled when it was on his person. Now, after the shooting is what this next paragraph addresses, and again, you can't get more the official story than the actual charging document against Tyler Robinson. A camera later captures the suspect as he runs across the roof to the suspected shooting position. Immediately after the shot was fired, a camera captures the suspect running across the roof carrying an item whose shape is consistent with the rifle. The suspect is then seen climbing down from the roof. He appears to drop the item he was carrying as he hits the ground in a controlled fall. He then picks up the item and runs toward the northeast end of the campus. Law enforcement officers follow the suspect's escape path through the northeast end of the campus, where they believe the suspect left the campus and entered a wooded area. In that wooded area, investigators found a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel. The rifle contained 1 spent round and 3 unspent rounds. This is consistent with the facts that officers observed at the time of and immediately after the shooting. No shell casings were found on the roof, suggesting a bolt action rather than an auto-loading weapon, and only 1 single round was fired. So again, nowhere in the official story, nowhere in the charging document is there a suggestion that Tyler Robinson disassembled the rifle after shooting Charlie Kirk, nor reassembled the rifle in order to ditch it in the woods. And near as I can tell, where this ends up coming from is a press conference that Kash Patel gave, where he said a screwdriver with Tyler Robinson's DNA was found on the roof, and I believe it was implied in some other form, or maybe in that press conference, that the screwdriver might have been something that he carried on him in case he needed to disassemble the rifle. But again, one crucial thing for you guys to understand is that if it was left on the roof, it wouldn't make any sense for the feds to make the case that he was using that screwdriver to disassemble and reassemble the rifle. And in fact, when you look at the surveillance video, even though it's extraordinarily grainy, you can actually see something that either looks like Tyler Robinson's arm, although it is incredibly stiff, or the firearm on his person as he drops down. And by the way, Dan Bongino tried explaining this to Megyn Kelly on September 14th on her show, or at least a clip that was posted on September 14th, although he wasn't the clearest about it, but you could see that what he is saying kind of lines up with the official story.
That's another thing that people are confused about, because if Kash said that they found his, what we presume was his screwdriver on the top of the building, and they found his DNA on it, leading many to believe he had disassembled the gun when he jumped off of the roof. But then it appears when you guys found it in the woods, it was assembled. So can you provide any clarity on that?
Well, watch it.
I got you.
The camera is quite far away. It's not the best camera to see exactly what happened to the gun. However, we have some working theories, and one of them is that he drops the firearm fully assembled onto the ground and then retrieves it.
Now again, if there's an alternative source for this claim, an alternative official explanation that includes this, and yet it is not in the charging document, please link it in the comments of this video. Send it to me over on Twitter. I am Sean90. But in reality, what I think actually happened right here is that somebody heard something, they made a post, it went viral. That thing is still going around the world to this very day, and as an entry point to the conspiracy theories, people people use the assembly and disassembly and then reassembly and then redisassembly of the rifle as proof positive, even though, again, it appears nowhere in the official documents. So what happens is that they have this ridiculous thing that they pin on the government, on the feds, as the official story, even though it's absolutely not the official story. And again, this bad information spreads all over the internet, creating an environment where people are thinking that something is being hidden from them. Another example of bad information that spread across the internet is Candace Owens saying that you have to be Spider-Man in order to get up on this roof.
No, it's the lone shooter who had never been on campus who climbed the roofs like Spider-Man.
Implying that it takes some magical physical ability that Tyler Robinson definitely 100% could not have had in order to get in that position. But the thing is, there is a video of somebody going to the UVU campus and walking up a flight of stairs casually in order to get to the shooting position.
Well, here's footage from when I went to UVU. Let me show you exactly how much of a Spider-Man you have to be to get on this roof. It's insane. All right, folks, so here's the stairs that go to the roof. Wow. This wall is about maybe 3 feet tall. All right, so right there is the shooting position. It's about 200 feet away from there.
Now, of course, he points out that there is a security fence that was put up after the shooting to make it more difficult for you to get there, but that was not present on the day that Tyler Robinson allegedly shot and killed Charlie Kirk. But much in the same way that very few people actually look up the charging document, make it all the way to the end of page 5 and read for themselves what the official story actually is, most people just assume that when people like Candace Owens say that you had to climb like a crazy person, especially since you see the video of Tyler Robinson jumping down from the roof in order to get up on the roof, that has to be the case, that just has to be reality. And very few people will look into it. Very few people will stumble upon this video that I saw right here, where the guy actually just walks up the stairs on that campus, and that is how misinformation spreads. So then you get people saying that, oh, there's no way he did the assembly, disassembly, assembly thing, and there's no way he could have done it with that Spider-Man-like climbing that he was required to, when he doesn't have any specific training in order to do so, when again, that is not what is alleged, and that is not what is represented by the reality. Now, another thing that people really harp on, and by the way, it is a dumb statement by somebody at Turning Point USA, is the bullet not going through Charlie Kirk's neck and being embedded in his spine or whatever. And I think at one point in time, Candace Owens actually dropped this complaint about this particular incident, but she might have picked it back up. Again, I've started watching her show. It's hard to track what the hell she's actually talking about. She started going off on some rant about how this one Pierre, and then there was another Pierre involved in one of the episodes that I watched. And honestly, like, what the hell am I supposed to do with that information? This is like girl brain overload. There's a reason why Candace Owens' series covering Blake Lively versus Justin Maldoni was so popular, because she definitely speaks to a demographic that I am not a part of. But yeah, this idea about the bullet piercing through, or it should have went through, and all these different experiments that are not one-to-one, yeah.
Well, we definitely penetrated our water jugs, and I don't think this is going to help to stop the conspiracy theories. His head fell off.
Look at that. I mean, watch that. Yeah, so I wanted to show that because I realized there's a bunch of people who may not be gun enthusiasts. Obviously, that channel is dedicated to it, and just so you understand and really appreciate what the federal government is trying to sell to you right now. That's what we mean when we say that particular bullet would have decapitated Charlie. Like, you see, like, actually, it just, the idea that just like ricocheted and went inward is just so beyond ridiculous. It's insulting. And they think that if they send out these like Glee boys, like Nick Fuentes acting, someone who looks like he's never even been traversed into nature before, that if they really put on the theater, then a bunch of hunters are going to go, yeah, I see what you mean, man. It's never going to happen. It's just never going to happen.
Look, I don't even know what to say to this other than the fact that I've seen people who said no way, absolutely not, but run experiments that are not one-to-one like the one that Candace Owens was watching. But on the flip side, I've heard from veterans that have posted videos about actually seeing people they know get shot and the bullet bouncing in a weird way and embedding in a weird way in the body of the people that they served with. So again, I think it is possible that the bullet could have been stopped by Charlie Kirk. However, the idea that it was stopped because he had strong bones or whatever, that is just something that must have been said to this Turning Point USA guy in order to make him feel better. Because spoiler alert, guys, I gotta break something to you. When you go to the hospital and you lose someone, doctors and nurses and people trained in bedside manner will tell you things that are untrue in order to make you feel better. Like, have you ever heard from a doctor that, oh, your relative that passed away didn't suffer at all, felt very little to no pain? Well, chances are, if your relative basically died in agony, that doctor would not tell you. They would tell you the same thing, that there was no pain, it was very peaceful, they didn't feel a thing, because that is a part of bedside manner. In fact, when my grandmother was a kid in Puerto Rico, her father was murdered by a mob of angry people because he was kind of basically acting as a lechero, the milkman, if you know what I mean. And yeah, they hacked him up, brutally killed this guy, and I am sure if my grandma, as a little girl, went up to the doctor to ask about her father, the doctor would have said he didn't suffer at all. He barely felt a thing. It was instantly over, even though, again, he was hacked up by a group of people holding machetes over the course of like 25 minutes. My great-grandfather definitely 100% died in agony, but you know what? Medical personnel would have 100% told my grandmother the opposite, even though she likely heard the man's screams when he was murdered, because that's what they do. So the fact that this got repeated in public was incredibly stupid, an unforced error, but no, in no way, shape, or form is whatever some doctor told a friend of somebody who was just brutally assassinated right in front of him the official story or any actual medical analysis or anything of the sort. And I wish they didn't say it publicly, because again, this is just like the rifle disassembly reassembly thing where people say, oh, well, if I can debunk that, then that basically tears down the whole thing, even though again, that is not a part of the official story. This is a thing that doctors and medical people do. I have plenty of them in my family. I have checked with them. They said, yes, this is a thing that happens.
We're talking about the tearing up of the crime scene and everybody's wanting them to find the bullet. I mean, if the bullet hit any bone at all, there is no bullet. It's just fragmentation.
Great point.
And
that was discussed already.
And if there was no exit wound. In the autopsy, though, there should be, I mean, if there was no exit wound, then there should be fragmentation of the bullet would have fragmented into who knows how many pieces.
The doctor, and again, this is not a non-disclosure violation, but the doctor came out there and told us. And then they also told Chief of Staff. So the bullet came in and hit the vertebra. So it came in and then tore up everything in the wound cavity, hit the vertebra, crushed it, shattered it, turned, crushed the second one, turned, kept going down all the way, I think they said C6.
Holy sh!
Yeah, it's like, why not put that info out? Why not put it out? And then
why wouldn't they put that out?
And if do me a favor, don't make me do it. It's not my job. And so then it got to here, and you're exactly right. And then hit, I think, 6, and then fragged. And so explanation 101.
And what makes that whole, the doctor told me Charlie Kirk has strong bones and that's why the bullet didn't go through and thus Charlie Kirk's last act was to save people thing sound especially stupid is that the explanation, which by the way we will receive at trial in full detail, is much more horrific and terrible as again shown to us in that particular clip right there. Because in reality Charlie Kirk had no idea and he was hit and the bullet basically hit his spine and ended up destroying significant significant aspects of his spinal cord. So yeah, it's just not a good thing for you to just add in these things that maybe a doctor told you to make you feel better, but you weren't smart enough to realize weren't like legitimate things to bring up as actual, information, and it just confuses the whole situation. Now look, there is no way I'm going to be able to go through and debunk each and every conspiracy theory that is being put forward by Candace Owens or anybody who is covering the story, investigating it with true good honorable intent, if you believe that sort of thing. But the fact is, I want you guys to start thinking about claims that you hear that sound unbelievable and actually not believe them. I want you to look into them for yourself, because sometimes when they are told that an official story is so crazy, I can't believe the government is trying to sell it, maybe there are people in the government who actually would not actually try to sell you on that crazy story. Maybe they would see that as crazy too. Maybe they said nothing of the sort, because many of the claims associated with Charlie Kirk's assassination fall into this particular category. Now, of course, people have made a mockery of Candace Owens for talking about how Tyler Robinson would never say vehicle in a text message, in text messages that, by the way, do look weird to me. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you guys out there in the audience. Maybe it's Matt Walsh's theory that the reason they look weird is because he's trying to exonerate his gay trans boyfriend or something after the fact that definitely knew. But the idea that Candace Owens would skip over the fact that Tyler Robinson used the word vehicle when talking to police on body cam footage and cut that clip from her show when she's making the case that no one would ever do that is absurd and insane.
There's old footage of Tyler Robinson that is now circulating from a car accident that he had. And during the discussion with the officer that showed up, Tyler certainly refers to it as his car, not his vehicle, because that's how most English speakers refer to a car, unless they're in the military or on the police force. So here is 2022 police body cam footage, in case you missed that, of Tyler making a crash report. Take a listen.
Your mom's on her way?
Yeah, she's gonna be a minute. She's gotta shuttle over from where she's at to her car and then drive over.
Gotcha.
His mother was gonna shuttle over from her car? Interesting.
Yeah, I was looking up at the light just before getting there.
Okay.
I saw it shift yellow. And as I get into the intersection, there was a vehicle in the lane.
Is that something that you say? I'm just gonna go outside to my vehicle. I left something in my vehicle. Apparently, they just shoot the breeze with one another and they say vehicle and retrieve. And if you don't believe me, then good. You shouldn't believe that. You shouldn't believe me when I say that. And Nick was particularly asking him to determine who owned a white vehicle. And everyone locally had looked at this vehicle and said, I can help you to just figure out more about this vehicle. And suddenly a president gets shot in a moving vehicle. November 22nd, 1963. JFK was shot. President JFK was shot sitting alongside his wife in a vehicle.
Also funny is that recently when she got into a beef with Tim Pool, she ended up describing the car that Tim Pool said fired shots at his property on one evening as a vehicle. Again, just making things more ironic. Now, of course, there's also the thing with the Egyptian planes where people have pointed out that Candace Owens mistook something for Utah time when in reality it meant something completely different. Again, there's so much to go into. She's done hours and hours of programming, and if I were to go through and run down every one of those claims in order to try to disprove them, the fact is this video would be like 35 hours long. Now, of course, there are many, many more theories. One of the dumbest ones I think involves Charlie Kirk's head of security and people saying, oh, he's doing these signs and signals as if a shooter on the roof needs to correspond to signals on the ground in order to fire those shots, as if it doesn't make sense at all whatsoever for somebody who's doing security at a crowded event to communicate in a way using signs that, again, people can see rather than hear, because you can't hear over a large crowd. And in addition to that, if you're trying to send signals for security purposes, then you don't want people who are in the crowd who may be security threats to hear you actually communicate that information. Not to mention the fact that this guy has apparently been with Charlie for years. So in my opinion, this is one of the dumbest, and again, it's also disgusting. But in addition to that, you also had Erika Kirk fully call out Candace Owens when she did an interview with Barry Weiss. I'll play that clip for you right here.
The podcaster Candace Owens, okay, at one time a friend of Charlie's, at one time an employee of Turning Point. She has been one of the main peddlers of these conspiracies, and she is making a huge amount of money on it. She is building her business off of these lies. What do you want to say to her and the other people that are putting these lies out into the world right now?
Stop. That's it. That's all I have to say. Stop.
Which, of course, even though I think it's reasonable for Erika Kirk to do so, will play into the Israel conspiracies, because in reality, Bari Weiss basically became the head of CBS News due to the fact that she happens to be very pro-Israel, and her outlet, the Free Press, was very much pro-Israel. And of course, we all know that Candace Owens released like an excerpt of some text messages where Charlie Kirk was complaining about Jewish donors and how they basically live up to the stereotypes, and how they were trying to pressure him into not having Tucker Carlson at certain events, and how Charlie Kirk said in those text messages, again in the excerpt that was released, that he has no choice but to abandon the Israel cause, which again, without broader context, may actually mean absolutely nothing. But Turning Point USA has not released those messages, and I'm hoping that they give us the actual context of the conversation in that live stream that they're supposed to do on December 15th. Speaking of which, Candace Owens was called to appear on said live stream. She ended up saying before that she would go anytime, any place in order to confront these Turning Point folks. However, after she was given a date, she decided that she was not going to be there. There was a scheduling conflict or something of the sort, and she asked to be like brought in remotely, but Turning Point USA didn't want to do that, or the Charlie Kirk show didn't want to do that. So again, you have like a whole mess of conspiracies. You have a bunch of different things that are always coming out. One of my friends actually sent me something related to the Google searches, where basically somebody had made the case that there were searches of specific figures and keywords that were tied into the Charlie Kirk assassination. However, these searches were prior to said assassination, and I've been looking into this, and I spent actually a significant amount of time going over it, but all I can say is that I can't recreate the original trend data. I did find some explanations for why the data in like quick succession to when it occurred might appear earlier than it was, but to be clear, there are videos about this that you can look up where people are making the case that Tyler Robinson, doctors at the hospital that would have treated Charlie Kirk, happened to be searched in Israel, happened to be searched in the District of Columbia and Alabama, weirdly enough, and that is something that people have brought forward as evidence of prior knowledge from government agencies to Charlie Kirk's assassination. Although again, I don't know the person. I found him, but I don't know the person who originally put this out. I can't recreate the data. He's claiming that it was scrubbed after the fact, and thus that's evidence of the cover-up. So yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. Like, the first thing that I thought about, if I'm being perfectly honest, when I saw this story was the Karen Reed trial, because it was actually brought up at trial that some of her search results were backdated to when a tab was open on a mobile browser. So I thought that that could have potentially been the case if they were searching it, but I'm going to be perfectly honest with you guys. This is above my pay grade, and I have no idea if that's how it works in trend data. I have no idea if what I'm being told when I ask Google's AI about their trending data, about how sometimes it can be inaccurate, but then over time it gets better. I don't know if any of that's legit, so you could take that for what it's worth, whatever you want to say about it. I just want you to know that yes, there are a bunch of theories that are out there, and again, I just don't have the time to run each and every one of them down. Again, I don't really have the time to go over Candace Owens' entire backlog and her ever-evolving theories.
The podcaster Candace Owens, okay? At one time, a friend of Charlie's, at one time, an employee of Turning Point. She has been one of the main peddlers of these conspiracies, and she is making a huge amount of money on it. She is building her business off of these lies.
Now look, I'm glad that they brought up Candace Owens by name, because if you look at the data associated with her channel, it has exploded since the assassination of Charlie Kirk. It is off the charts, and she was already a large content creator prior to this, but her level of success and growth can't be ignored. So whenever you're talking about podcasters that are maybe profiting off of the Kirk theories, in reality, like, you can't do so without naming Candace Owens, in my humble opinion. Now, with all that being said, I really don't want you guys to lose your skepticism. I don't want you to not ask questions and not question the official narrative or anything of the sort. I just want you to be more skeptical of the skeptics, or the so-called skeptics, that are just asking questions, but in reality, they're drawing conclusions based on claims that they did not run down themselves. Look, it's not only important to check your sources, but it's also important, like Kirk Wilcox says, to check your premises, check your baseline assumption, see if that is actually foundationally strong in order to figure out if you're going down the right track in terms of what you're promoting on the internet.com. And while I'm not saying you can't question the folks over at Turning Point USA, because fundamentally TPUSA is a power structure, there were things that Charlie Kirk stabilized while he was there, and of course people are going to try to fill the vacuum now that he's not. That's standard, normal, and sensible. What I will say is proceed with a bit of caution, because in reality a lot of people are accusing the folks over at Turning Point USA who were closest to Charlie Kirk of being in on or taking advantage of his murder immediately after his murder while they're grieving that murder. And that's kind of a disgusting, terrible, horrible situation, and it's borderline reminiscent of the thing that caused so much outrage among the left wing, which of course was the whole Sandy Hook families being questioned and confronted in real life by conspiracy theorists. So yeah, I honestly am not a fan of Candace Owens. I'm not a fan of a lot of people involved in this particular situation, but my opinion as of right now is that I have yet to see any compelling information that would disprove the idea that Tyler Robinson was the person who murdered Charlie Kirk. And by the way, for those people who are saying that somehow this online conspiracy theorizing is going to undercut the case at trial, it's not going to undercut the evidence or what is argued. I guess what they're trying to say maybe is that possibly the jury could be like informed on these conspiracies, but typically they are told to set that aside before they walk into the courtroom. And I don't know, even as big as Candace Owens' show is right now, that it's big enough to impact the entire potential jury pool for this specific case. And my personal takeaway from this entire story is basically what it's been the entire time. I witnessed on video, I wish I hadn't, Charlie Kirk get murdered, get shot in the neck by presumably a leftist, and regardless of whether or not you believe that Tyler Robinson was the shooter or not, even though I do believe that as of right now until there is compelling evidence to the contrary, I witnessed huge portions of the left wing celebrate his assassination directly. I watched politicians excuse it, talk about how Charlie Kirk was this evil bad person, quote mine him after he died on the House floor in order to again provide cover to their base who again was openly celebrating this man's murder. I saw people on my own personal social media that have no idea that I'm a YouTuber, that I cover right-wing political topics on this channel, no idea that I have significant crossover in views with somebody like Charlie Kirk, also celebrate his death, which tells me that these people would celebrate my death, which tells me that those people who think that you should be murdered for your opinion are in reality the real enemy, the real thing that we have to worry about in this nation. And all of this infighting and all this conspiracy theorizing is an unfortunate distraction from the main issue. And honestly, I don't really give a damn what Candace Owens' motivation is. If it's genuine love for Charlie Kirk, if she happens to be doing it for the money, if she happens to be doing it because we all know that if you can gin up conspiracy controversy around this and point it at Israel, you will get more attention and more people will jump on board with it and more people will support you. Or if she's just lazy and not fact checking the things that she's saying, shooting off at the mouth.
That there was this chance that trafficking, like global trafficking, is could be involved here. Like that this could be maybe somehow Charlie was being asked to be brought in. He built an organization that has a presence, I think in all 50 states, actually in all 50 states. And that presents a certain opportunity, like for potentially trafficking.
Just like a random stream of consciousness from her mind with no filter to her audience. And that really is not something that goes into my calculation of how I assess this. What I try to focus on throughout the course of this video is common baseline conspiracies about the official story that aren't actually attributed to the actual official story and how they end up leading down this rabbit hole of other conspiracies that build on top of it. Candace Owens just happens to be the person who's probably built on it the most, in that she's talking about random French billionaires.
Now, the tip that we received was that we were very much on the right track and that there was another Pierre that we should be looking into, right? And what I'm going to say is, despite this tip and indicating that Turning Point, people that work with Turning Point or one of their action organizations, who knows which organization, they have a few, took a meeting with this particular Pierre. We cannot verify that yet. We would like to verify that information. And if you know more, please email us, moretips@candaceowens.com. But I'm going to tell you that even if we can't verify that tip, just knowing who this person is, this person who lives in Scottsdale, Arizona, and is a billionaire, and that is where Turning Point USA is based, knowing this person's background is incredibly compelling, okay? This individual that they mentioned that we should take a look into or learn more about, his name is Pierre Falcone. Now, I had never heard of this individual, and I'm going to say allegedly again regarding the Turning Point USA connection, but his past is not allegedly, okay? He was involved in a scandal that almost brought down the French government, and it involved, here we go, Africa, Angola in particular, Israel, France, and the United States.
And going on all these side tangents and trying to give the impression that all of this ties together as to what was behind Charlie Kirk's murder, when I just don't think that's the case. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social medias, support me via support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the war over the death of Charlie Kirk. Till next time.